Hi there, everybody. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet.
Angela Gabrielle here from Elevated Planet, and we'd like to welcome you to today's show, where John is going to tell us more about it.
The Lionsgate portal is upon us, a precise alignment between the Earth, the Sun, Sirius, and Orion's belt. This is regarded as a doorway to higher spiritual dimensions. We explore the history and the implications of this through the wisdom of Sagaru and our friends at Twisted Reality. This then provides the perfect foundations as we move into the planetary transition from the third to the fifth dimension that is currently underway. We ask, what happens if we have unresolved karma? Will it hold us back? Well, we have a wonderful angelic source who explains everything in the most relatable kind of way. This then enables us to take ownership of our own personal outcome. And this is particularly important as outstanding karma can often be ancestral in nature and may manifest itself as disease and illness in this lifetime, particularly as we get closer to the dimensional transition. Getting a perspective around how to handle this is very important, as the traditional Western ways can create significant disharmony and only add to the issue. Finally, we explore the journey from the third dimensional reality of separation and illusion into the expanded and enlightened state of the fifth dimension. All revealed wisdom is then encapsulated into another wonderful Jole Gabrielle guided meditation to help us embody these messages. So it's all about, as I say, karma in a time of transition. We have Alariel to lead the way here. Now, for those who have not been with us in previous months and weeks, Alariel is one of the angels who supports the Melchizedek teachers wherever they happen to be in the universe, right? But they've certainly been spending time here on Earth. And there are 12 angels assigned to the Melchizedek teachers. He is one of them. And also the other thing that these 12 angels are doing now is also supporting the likes of the crystal children, the rainbow children, the indigo children, who are here to help raise consciousness on the planet as well. So that is part of the assignment. The wisdom that Alariel provides us with is really deep. And so he's looking at it from the outside coming in from an angelic perspective. And I think that really does add a perspective which is very, very important. So I think, oh yeah, and just to mention as well, Stuart Wilson from this book, Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice, is basically, he's the one who has channeled Alariel for this particular book, which is the Magdalene version. It comes highly recommended, as I've mentioned before, along with The Power of the Magdalene and Essene's Children of the Light. So it's a fantastic story even behind how we got to do this. But for now, we are going to just listen to the wisdom of Alariel, and then we will be back again. So bear with me a second. We will switch screens.
Karma in a time of transition. As we move into the planetary transition, there is a lot of confusion about what will happen to our karma. How will we be able to clear all our karma, and what will happen to unresolved karma? We asked Alariel to comment on that issue, and this was his response.
Alariel, you are in process of passing through your planetary transition when the Earth will move upwards into a new frequency. And there is a parallel development within your experience as human beings. You are leaving behind the heavy third dimensional or 3D experience and entering the much lighter world of the fifth dimension or 5D. Much has been written about the karma which you have accumulated during all your previous lives on this planet. So the question arises, what will happen to all this karma? The answer is twofold. The resolving of karmic energies depends mainly upon the existence of linear 3D time. When a planet enters transition and moves into the next dimensional reality, 3D time vanishes. However, preparations for this are made well before you reach this point. During the run-up to period preceding the transition period, human beings have steadily become more sensitive and more introspective, and many new therapies have emerged to help you deal with unresolved past life energies. Whereas previous generations were just focused on living during that life, for this generation, your past lives and all the energies they bring with them are beginning to loom large. This process is helped along by the proliferation of the physical ailments. When some past life energy emerges as an illness, human beings become very focused on dealing with the problem. Now you could argue that it would have been wiser to resolve past life problems as you progressed through the whole sequence of lives. But it is a sad fact that most human beings have not lived like that. They have simply got on with expressing themselves in an ego-dominated way and have hardly given a second thought to any previous life they may have had. Well, all that is changing now. Your past lives and the energies they bring are no longer whispering at you. They are beginning to shout. And this shouting process is encouraging you to deal with these energies in a much more conscious and effective way than before. Yet, however effective you are, there is usually quite a lot of karma to deal with. And it is quite likely that at transition, some of this karmic energy remains unresolved. This is where the second aspect comes into focus. At the point of transition, providing you are going through a process of awakening and rising in vibration, your remaining karma is waived through the operation of divine grace. If you think about it, you will see that this must be done if there is to be any kind of justice. The linear time you need to resolve karma is disappearing. So soon, no one will have the time to work off these energies in the traditional way through experiences in lives led at the 3D level. There just isn't going to be extended linear time for ego-dominated three-dimensional lives. Lives that certainly accumulated a lot of karma, but were also an effective platform for paying off that karma too. In the quite exceptional situation that arises when a planet goes through transition, other arrangements must be made to ensure that those who are capable of going into the experience of a higher level of being are able to do so. It would simply be unfair to hold back those souls who are capable of change and transformation just because they had some unresolved karma, which is why the intervention of grace is essential at this time. Of course, this is an exceptional situation. A planet only goes through transition once, and you have the good fortune to be living at this momentous time. There is also another consideration here. It has always been possible to deal with karma in two ways: pay it back by working it off in the traditional way or transmute it. The key to transmuting karma is to probe the original energy, understand the cause, learn the lesson, release the energy, and move on. This process of transmuting karma can be done at any point, whether you are working within linear time or not. And another question arises here, too. Won't you be acquiring more karma as you live your new lives beyond the point of transition? Yes, but only for a little while. It will take human beings some time to move from creating their reality at the personality level, with the ego dominating their lives, to the next level of reality creation, which is focused on the soul. When the soul creates a reality, it does so with the highest good of all beings in mind. This is karma-less creation, and that is what you are now moving towards. Yes, it will take a little time to get used to this, but after transition, this new process, which is called co-creation, will become more and more the model for human experience. The whole point of moving beyond karma is to move to living in much lighter, easier, and more joyful ways, and that will form the basis of the exploration of life beyond the transition. So don't think of the transition as an ending of all things. Yes, it ends a planetary cycle, but life continues, and this is only the beginning of living in a much more expanded and enlightened way. Life beyond the transition will give you the chance to cast off your littleness and reconnect fully with the great beings of light you really are. So go forward into these times of change with courage. After all, You have nothing to lose but your limitations.
So once again, deep gratitude to Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice for their work at the Magdalene version. This is so enlightening. I love this because when you think about the fact that this is the path that we've been on for so many lifetimes. I don't know what the typical number of lifetimes we've had on the planet. Maybe I've certainly heard people who've had, I think it was Neil Donald Walsh, he was told he'd been there here on the planet 600 odd times. And maybe that's a pretty much not the same kind of number for most of us. But we never understood the rules of the game, right? During this particular time, anyway, where we've had the veil of forgetfulness, we didn't know the rules to try and kind of change things around and make sure that we pay our karma early. So now we are going to get this like a lot more karma, and many people may be feeling, the ailments, the physical ailments and the likes that have manifested themselves. And this is why new therapies to resolve these past life energies have come forward. And I know some amazing healing that can be done. I mean, Jolay herself is fantastic. And if anybody does want any healing through Jolay, just drop me an email to johndrew@elevatedplanet.life, because the reason I'm working with her was when I approached her back in early 2020. I realized that having gone through that one session that we needed to work together. So she didn't get the restraining order out, and we're still working together all these years later. But yeah, so these are the healers that are out there. We've got other healers that we access as well who have got extraordinary new galactic healing that has come through as well. I mean, I talk about like Aveen Murray over in Northern Ireland. She does some amazing healing, and that is quantum light pod healing, which involves her guides, her extraterrestrial guides that work with. It's bizarre, right? I mean, it's not mainstream, but this is here for very specific purposes at a very specific time, a planetary transition. So, I just think that these things are so important because we cannot take the baggage with us of past karma into into the lighter, higher dimension that we're heading to. So, again, these old energies are no longer whispering, they're now shouting. So now we have a lot to deal with. But the important thing here, and I love this, is the fact that if we are going through a process of awakening and rising in vibration, wherever we are on that journey, you could be quite advanced and going yet more highly advanced, or you might just be beginning the journey, but you are beginning to raise your vibration. So for those who don't get this at this point, this is not over yet, right? This is going to be going on undoubtedly for years yet, where we're going through this transition. And for those people who are on a raising vibration path, then you're not going to get left behind. You're going to have the opportunity to get into this into the higher dimensions. So the ego dominated 3D lives and linear time will be history for those who make it up to the fifth dimension. So linear time, obviously you can't bring karma into linear time, so that's why it has to be shed. But the implications are that if your level of consciousness is stuck at that 3D level, that you cannot, when it comes to this timeline split, which is often talked about, then that means that you have to stay at the level which is appropriate for your particular vibration. And again, there's no judgment with that. That is just your own soul's journey. And we have to honor the fact that some people are here to hold space, right? For people to move up, there has to be a balance. So some people have agreed to come in to hold more of a darker energy to allow for more light elsewhere. So again, we don't judge against those souls because we're all one, right? When it comes down to it, we are all one. So that I found this really interesting as well. Reality creation is going to change in the fifth dimension. It's shifting from individual personal creation, which is what we have at the moment. Even when we're unconscious creators, we are constantly creating our reality, both on a group level and on an individual level. But there is a lot of latency with our creation. And what that means is it takes a long time to happen. You have to stay in a vibration for a long time to be able to draw it in because of the density of the third dimension. And that in itself is a blessing in many ways, because when you're having dark thoughts and fearing things, it doesn't mean that what you fear is instantly coming your way. You have chance to stop and think about it and then move to a higher vibrational thinking thought. And you're starting to move back in that direction. But that's a conscious mechanism, right? To know that to be true. So the fact is that we're moving to this time of karmaless creation, this idea of co-creation. And I found this really, what it struck me with this is that if we look at, for instance, we do the Pam Gregory guided meditation on Thursday as a group. And it's a great thing to do because Pam is pulling us all together around the world, not just through Elevated Planet, but anybody who wants to join this wherever they are in the world. Then everybody is feeding their own energy into that quantum wave structure of kindness, of compassion, of peace, of harmony, of joy. And therefore, the more of us that do that around the world at that time, feeding that quantum wave structure, we are elevating consciousness as we do that. Now, that is an act of co-creation. That's not personal creation. That is conscious creation on a group basis. The same thing is true when we do the meditations at the end of the shows, because what Jole is doing is creating like a meditation that we do as a group. So it's a co-creation. So when we're talking about tapping into our world of unspeakable beauty, and we're all there in our own minds at that point, we're elevating our consciousness. We're elevating the consciousness of the all. So I think that's really an important thing, and I found that quite an exciting thing, really. But we have nothing to lose but our limitations, as Ilariel put it. But I want to come back to the transmutation of karma and bring Jole back in for your thoughts on that, because that is one of your specialist subjects, really.
Yes. Like I told you earlier, the one blind spot I had though is seeing karma manifest physically in the body, right? I mean, I understood it logically, but it really hit me that cleaning up past lives through regression or even your own meditation is so important in terms of resolving and dissolving karma. Now, first and foremost, we have to recognize, as I said before, the pattern that we are that keeps showing up in our lives. And then we have to go, I choose something greater. We don't want to give any energy to the negative. We want to recognize, and then we want to choose something better and then release what no longer serves. So you have to be aware, right? And your awareness means when I get into this moment, I'm going to choose a new behavior. Once that behavior is chosen, then we double down by setting boundaries and being consistent around that. Because when we're looking at this, even though it's spiritual, emotional, we have to be practical in how we approach karma. We have to be intentional around resolving and dissolving it. And I'm at the front of the line because I suffer from issues, obvious and not obvious, and that is, some would say, my karma. So for me, I have to recognize these patterns, even physical ones. Is there a pattern in your family of back problems? Maybe that means double down on creating stability in your life on every level. Do you have issues with your skin? Cultivate belonging, loving, being kind, and I don't mean like, I want to say the word ingratiating yourself in ways in social situations and really being resilient around your self-esteem. So recognize these patterns instead of just automatically being triggered by them. And that's the beauty of this portal. We can move into that co-creation with intention and also with joy because now we know we're remembering who we are. Now, another part of the karma I'd like to lay on the table, and it may be controversial for some, is working with your ancestors. During this time, I've been working a lot with my ancestors, my guides, my masters, of course, angels, always, but really being intentional again about connecting and communicating on a regular basis, and then listening for that guidance. And the self-doubt will resolve itself. Why? Because when you set a new pattern, you begin to lean in with consistency to something new. Now, I want to challenge everybody because we have been programmed, lean into the stress, lean into what's not working, lean into the problem, right? Let's pivot that Titanic this time and get the Illuminati off the boat. But let's pivot to positive. I got this. I can do this. This is a pattern that I choose now. I might in the past have created a situation where all my partnerships were one where I'm the one financially responsible or whatever. Now we shift that pattern and we say, you know what? I am financially responsible for myself. I take good care of me. I am stable in how I financially unpack my, whatever. So it's
Mm.
like really understanding who you are, the power that you have. And then once you're creating that bubble for your life, guess what frequency and vibration is being put out? Because the vibration of a partnership where you're constantly paying is one of low self-esteem, low self-worth, low vibration and frequency, right? Recognizing that and saying, hey, let me work here. So karma is in that way of a lesson. That's all that it is. It isn't a punishment. It doesn't mean you have to sit and struggle. It's about recognizing, releasing, repairing, and replacing, right? In that kind of order. So just take it from a practical kind of scientific perspective, and then also understand the concept of what you're doing. And we move into our moon alchemy because that's really what this is all about. At the base level, it's about resolving and dissolving those patterns, and those patterns are karma. And so we're using the patterns of the moon, we're using the patterns of the day of the week and the month in order to align with our highest and most loving good. And it does work. Now, the rub is a consistency,
Mm.
getting into the rhythm of the moon phases because there's so many distractions every day, so many things we have to do. I mean, you're washing the dishes and the phone rings. You know what I mean? You have a choice. Do I stay focused or do I answer the phone? Like, I mean, I know I kind of went on a sidebar, but you kind of have to organize yourself that way because of all of the distractions. Get into and so the moon alchemy helps us get into our own rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And you've done some great work on the journal, I know, this week as well. And I'm excited about when that comes out because it'll be supporting the Moon Alchemy program, which is all about create your own new reality. And it's just really all about taking ownership rather than
Yes.
being the unconscious creators that we've been programmed to be, right? And that's, again, no complaints there, because that's what we signed up for. That's what we
Right.
came here for. We came for a journey with the veil of forgetfulness drawn down so that we didn't understand we were creating our reality, and then we get fed programs and things that do not work in our favor.